see if it works. And I'm coming tight on this guy. So I think this is important for everybody. And I don't have to, in fact, I don't think I will. I don't have to use paint. You all know that. So I'm looking at, I can't forget my sign. Look at the lag. Oh, that's because of the photo. Okay, cool. So everybody can kind of see that, right? I'm gonna put these guys away. So here's what I'm looking at to start with. Okay, you guys ready?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know why I'm getting the jerk, but that's okay. I'm looking at, and you're looking at that Iceland picture. And we're going to make it horizontal. So this is my boundary. I'll make it fairly large. Look at it, he can draw straight lines. Isn't that amazing? Kind of, sort of. And the horizon line. So after I get my boundaries, the first thing I'm going to do, and I always do, is where's the horizon line? And this is actually a little higher on the page than normal. And then I'm going to say, okay, where is my light coming from? Well, it kind of sort of looks like it's coming from behind that top hill, and it's to the left. So I'm going to put my my light source back here someplace. There's my light source. And then I'm going to make this hill, and I'm going to make it go all the way across, and I'm going to, for lack of a better, and I know this isn't correct maybe, but I'm going to end it right there because I want this little space to get in here. And then I see that I have this black beach going on through here. Oh, here I have some diagonals running down through there. And you guys can see my screen, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you're seeing the reference. And then I have this angle coming down of that white stuff, and it kind of comes down about there, and then it kind of goes to here, and then it kind of comes down to here, and then I've got something going off the page there. And so that's going to leave me room for my beach, which is that and that, and it exits about halfway. I think that's pretty good. I think I did good on my drawing. So this is about, it's about halfway, yeah. Okay, kind of sort of there. And these guys are all a bunch of rocks, whatever this stuff is. So I can, this is just to remind me that this is all kind of rocky. And I like these little slivers of these white things along the beach. They're actually pretty good design elements. So I'm going to use gray. I'm going to make everything that isn't white. I'm going to leave the sky white, and I'm going to leave the water, the ocean. So there's a nice mid-tone shape, and all this stuff is going to have a mid-tone shape. And I think when we talked about this before, I'm going to kind of put this gray in this way. So I get a couple of, I get a few little sparklies. I get a few little white sparklies going on. And that's because of the material that I'm painting. So these are my two shapes, right? Can everybody see that? And I said that everything that is either dark or black or mid-tone is going to be gray. It's going to be my mid-tone. I'm doing this to prove a point, that's all. So all these shapes are connected now, aren't they? The beach is connected to these hills, and the beach is connected to these rocks, or this, whatever these guys are. So if I'm looking at that now, I'm seeing this shape. I'm seeing this shape. Now I can see the shape better, and you can too probably, because it's not familiar to you. It's upside down. So now I get to use my dark. Yay, this is the most fun that I have. So here's my dark, and I like this. I like this beach going across here. And now I know that this is going to be my Yep, I'm going to have that go off. And I am going to put some, where this goes through the cracks here. So I'm going to put a few of those little guys, and I'll put bigger ones up here and smaller ones back there just to remind me. And then I see that I have a couple of these guys coming down through here. And they get less as they go further down this path. And I did kind of a hack job of drawing that black beach over there, but that's okay. And I see I have some a little more interest in there. And this kind of thing that I'm doing right now, once again, you can do it with markers. You don't have to get out paint, because there seems to be less pressure for some reason when it's only markers. So to me, and I can use my white pencil too, I can go back and say, okay, I want a little highlight there, and I want some highlight there, and I want that there, and I want a little bit of, yes, I want a little bit of highlight there, and well, so on and so forth. So to me, this is, see all those shapes in there? See all the shapes that I can see? I know that this is, I don't know what kind of rocks these are yet. I know that's a landmass back there. And I know that that looks like water to me. If I clean it up a little bit. I know because I'm looking at it. And so that's going to be reflecting the sky. Does this make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And I can go back and I can actually do it now that I see that. I can actually go back and I can do a few rocks in there, which help define some of the simple one, because it is simple. And if I screwed up something, I can take this white pencil or I can take white paint and I can clean it up a little bit. And then I can say, then and only then can I say, okay, I have to remind myself, I'm just going to hit this really lightly. There's going to be my sky coming in. So I don't need any more than that. That's just to remind me. So now I think I have a solution. And now I think I can say, okay, do I move forward with this or do I go find something else to paint? I'm going to make that guy smaller. Do I find some, because I figured it out. I've only spent 10 minutes on it, but I figured out what I want to, how I want to paint this. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how I figure stuff out. So, and then we have, let me get my glasses. So we're done with that, and I'll send you that if you want me to, Holly. That's why I was painting that. That's why I was kind of painting that yesterday. In our conversation that we had. Okay, so I've got this guy in the foreground, and this is going to be another horizontal, I think. And I'm going to do this pretty. Kind of quickly. I don't want to get too involved in the drawing. And this guy sitting on the rock, he's really going to have to be drawn well, so I know that he's a figure in there. Because the shape of him, it's hard to, if he wasn't wearing a blue shirt, I wouldn't even be able to tell because of the shape of him. I mean, if he was wearing a green shirt, he would probably just disappear for me. I couldn't tell because of the shape. I couldn't really tell. So I know it looks great in a photo because I see the sweat on there and I see the rest of the stuff, but it might not work so well for a painting. I might want to have him standing, or I might want to have him doing something else. So I'm going to turn this guy again, and I'm going to say, okay, I've got something coming up here. And I've got this kind of jaggy thing. That's okay. And then I've got this guy wearing a hat. And he's I have to look. kind of sitting on that rocky guy. Yeah, I think he's got his elbow kind of on that rock. So there's my shape, and there's my center of interest, and the guy is kind of in here, and I might want to change that later. I might want to move this over and move this up a tad and chop this guy off right there so I can already tell. So where's my light coming from? Where's my light coming from, Rick?
From behind, the top left,
Okay.
behind.
I'll put it up here. I'll put my light coming from up here. Now, my next big deal is what's he looking at? I'm going to put this lake down in here. And I see I have something. I see I have this ridge line, and I'm going to make this ridge line. I'm going to have him break above the ridge line. How's that? And I'm going to make this. I'm going to make this valley go like that, and here's the lake down here. And then I have this. Well, that's not too bad. I mean, in those few strokes, I don't think that is too awful. I have this big mountain and I have these mountains behind that, and all of these guys are kind of leading down to the lake. I'm going to leave that. And I like the idea of having this guy break that first hill. Here's what he's sitting on. And here, I'd rather have it go down that way. And here is here's what he's sitting on. Here's the closest row of mountains or landmass, and here's the lake way down there. And here's the distant mountains. I actually am liking this. Looking for my ruler when I smack my hands. What do I do with it? Oh, here it is. Cool. So I changed, see when I started this, I just made light lines. So I changed this crop. I didn't want him up so high in the pick because I wanted some of that atmosphere or that landmass, that distance more prominent. And I gave a little bit more room on the left, I think, and the right. So that's a fairly good, that's a fairly typical proportion. And I like these shapes in here. I like this pointing toward him. I like him breaking through there. I like him, I like this lake down here, which is gonna be, I'm gonna leave white. So once again, I'm gonna leave the sky as light. And I'm going to, I'm gonna color everything in that's not white. I'm gonna leave some light on his hat. And for now, I'm gonna leave him dressed in a light shirt for now. I'm not going to say that that's going to be all the time. And I'm going to leave this lake as light because that's reflecting the sky. And if that light's coming from up here, that's probably going to be shining on his back. So I'm going to leave a little bit of that there. And I'm going to cover here's now that's actually the easy part. Here's where the challenge starts to come in. Yes. Let's see. I have three distinct shapes here. I have this big background shape, this big background shape, and I have this lake down here that's reflecting the light off of the sky. And then I have this shape, this middle shape through here. It's just diagonal, and that is a mid-ground, a middle distance shape. And then I have this guy sitting on the rock, which is the foreground shape. So I think I'm going to follow what's appropriate at this point. I'm going to put this. I'm going to make this pretty dark up here. The rock that he's sitting on. I'm going to leave some rock texture, but I'm going to make it pretty much a shape. And I see that I can continue that shape down in here a little bit. And now I'm going to leave this as a mid-tone for now. I'm going to put a few little, you've got a few little things going like that off of that top of that. But I think what I'm going to do is leave this shape, and that's that part of this middle ground hill in here. And I am going to use this big shape, only I'm going to make it darker down here by this lake. And the reason I'm doing that is I want this middle ground hill to separate from the background. So the light is coming from over there. That means this side of this mountain could be in a little more shadow, and these ridges coming down, these sweeps coming down for that lake are a little more in shadow, and this side that's coming down from that sun is putting this side of this hill in shape and shade. I don't know why I keep saying shade. So you see fairly quickly, I think, I'm starting to make some kind of a sense out of this. I'm going to leave that guy alone because that's way in the distance. That's behind those guys. I want a little bit more of something happening in here, and I'll put just a suggestion of some, I'm going to make them pine trees or trees somewhere down in here. And so there's my guy, and there's in the hat. And here's his arm resting on the rock. And And so there's my rock. I think I'm going to simplify that a little bit. And then I'm going to get my white pencil, and I'm going to put a few of these patches of snow that are left on there, especially back here on this guy. And I'm not going to put much at all over here. I'm going to maybe put a little bit of just leading into this guy with the sitting on the rock. And this was a much trickier one than the first one. So there he is, he's wearing his hat, and he's got a shadow on that side of it, I guess. So to me, I'm proud of myself for this one. This was a challenging one. Because I had this diagonal here and I have these clouds here, I'm gonna, once again, I'm just gonna make a couple of swipes. So those are my, if I have a sky in there, that's the way it's gonna go. So does this make sense to you guys? How we took all those photos and we simplified it and made something out of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks great.
Well, I think it's, I think it's, yeah, as I said, I'm kind of proud of this one because this was a hard one. I didn't know where it was going to go. But anyway, I want you to hear and see, even though I prattle, even though I lose my train of thought sometimes, I want you to hear me think out loud. I know that's pretty tricky sometimes, but I think this, out of what we had to work with, works pretty well. And I could add this white that I'm using. It's kind of key to leading you into the photograph to him. And I can put it any place I want. That photograph on the bottom, this big guy, that's really confusing me. I'd much rather see the guy looking at the lake, and I know there's still some snow on the mountains because it's late winter, spring is coming or whatever.
Joe, what is that white pencil you're using?
It's just a Prismacolor pencil.
Oh,
It's not the Color Erase, it's the wax pencil. It's a regular Prismacolor pencil. So anyway, you know what I forgot? This camera looks jerky to me, and I forgot to see what this camera is set on, as far as, because I don't need it more than like 720. Anyway, I like this little guy. This little guy right here, that simplified the whole scene. Even roughly done like this, I can see the shapes. So anyway, I hope that helps.
Sure does. Thank you.
You know what is great, Joe, and you're talking about listening to you talk your way through this, is it gets you to think design. You know, we need.
It's all about that for me. It's all about the design of it. It's back to the first two things. Forget the drawing. It's shapes and values, and how are shapes defined? They're defined by values. And once you have those shapes defined by values, what's the arrangement of those? And that's the design.
So do you think that there's value in doing this with, I noticed you did it with markers, and do you think there's value to do it, sorry, my phone just rang, I got distracted, with doing it in watercolor, you know, just
sure.
more practice. Yeah.
Well, no,
Because
you can do it in watercolor, and I just did that in watercolor. I mean, if you guys remember these guys, you know, that is watercolor. So, and that's watercolor, and that's watercolor. So, yes.
right, I was just following along, and I did it with my Apple Pencil, so that's why I was asking, and it came out kind of interesting, but I'm not getting any practice working with the watercolor. I guess that was.
Well, what I'm trying to do is once you get the watercolor in your hand, I'm trying to do both. I'll back the camera up, or I'll just go to photo. Hang on, then you can see everything. What I'm trying to do is I am trying to, when I have marker, I can't get as cute as I can with watercolor. I can't get as subtle. I can't get little nuances and stuff. So I'm trying to do this as simply as I do this. I don't care what it takes. I don't care if it's pretending that you're using a marker when you're using the watercolor. But when I start painting in watercolor, just because it's watercolor, you know stuff's going to happen. You know, you can wipe out a little bit, you can change it a little bit. With marker, you can't. With marker, it's just black, or it's just gray, or it's just white. So. Yeah, I see the value. What you're saying, I see the value in, yes. The more
I did that with on the pad.
Yeah, the more I paint, the more I learn, and so on and so forth. I just don't want it to be a painting. I want it to be a study. How's that?
Okay.
And so this is critical to me to be doing this, because I'm not spending all my time trying to save something. I'm actually trying to figure it out, and I don't want to. I want to explore. Oh, what if I did this? What if I did this? And I don't want to pay a price for it. If I'm doing a full sheet of watercolor and I'm doing, I spent all this time stretching it. I spent money buying it. I spent all this time drawing it. Now I have all this vested interest in it, this equity, and I don't want that. I just want to be able to figure it out first, and I don't want to pay the penalty. Look at this brush. This brush is the one that I had that had that nice point on it. I just let it soak because it was full of sizing. Look at how fat that got. It's just a big mop now. It is just a big floppy, sloppy mop. Kind of cool. So there's my challenge. I got to paint with a mop because, hey, all the big guys paint with a mop, so maybe I should be painting with a mop. Okay.
You control the tip on that, though. It's really surprising how you get to control the tip on that, though.
Oh yeah.
Pretty cool.
Well, you remember that one guy that I showed you, Lee, Lieyy, the guy that painted the ballerinas?
Yeah, yeah.
That crappy brush he was using?
Amazing.
Oh my God, it was horrible. Anyway, I'm going to turn this so I can see what Jane, Robert Wade would, you would love Robert Wade, Jane.
Oh, who's that?
He's an English painter. He's kind of old now, but he was before Joey Z. He was one of Joey Z's influences. So here's my boundaries, which I can change later. And so let's figure out, where's the light coming from? It's got to be coming from the right
Yeah.
because I see the shadow on the trees. And I see the shadow in the water. That could just be a reflection, but I think it's a shadow. I think it's coming from the upper right. So I'm going to put my little guy. I'm going to put my little guy there now that I've got my boundaries and I've got my light source. And let's see, this is another interesting challenge. So where's my horizon line? My horizon line is about in the top third. And it's where those trees are. It's close to the shoreline. It's about in the middle of those trees. And I see that I have a something diagonal running through there. And then I have this shore and I have this island. I have this island. Let me try to be. And I have some more of this sand going on down through here. I have a bunch of growth. I don't know what all that is because I can't see the photo from here. I have some hills back there, and then I have a bunch of trees. And I'm going to make this a river to try to be windy, and I'm going to start it up there. And then I have this looks like a bunch of chicken scratchings, huh? Interesting. There's a definite break right here, but I'm gonna try to leave this. Try to leave that river up there. And this is what you liked about this. This is a bunch of rocks. Wow. It's another challenge. You guys are killing me today. I'm going to leave the sky white again. I'm going to make all this stuff, this distant hills, that's going to be midtone. I'm going to leave some white up here because I want that to be the river. And I'm going to leave this sand bar white because I want that to be the sandy area. And we have some more of that over on this side. So it's not the only place. That's some organic stuff going on in this corner. And then I have these trees, but I have this tree shape and I have this. I'm just blocking this in. And then hopefully a river is going to appear. See how I let this river wind back here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is my, these are my, some rocks in here and whatnot, but I'm keeping this, I'm keeping this, this windy river all the way through. And in fact, I think, even though it isn't, let's see, yeah, I can do that. I'm going to make a couple of these distant trees go up. So I've connected all these shapes. So there's a connection. So it's, again, it's an abstract painting. I kind of like that because it's higher than that. I've got an interesting shape. I've got this windy shape in here. So I think that's kind of interesting. What else can I say? Of course I do. I did it. Okay, now is the hard part. Let me start with where's the light coming from and where's it being blocked? So I see a bunch of trees. The light's coming from up here. And so this is, that light is behind these trees. So this is a darker shape in here. Those are, that's where the other side of the trees are happening. And then I see some foliage, but I'm not going to get too crazy with this because I want this to be more of a bigger, darker shape. And those are some shadows that are happening on the water. And our reflections. So I'm just going to make this look organic-y. Is that a word? Organic-y. Because I want that to all kind of hang together. There's just a few little things to suggest water. Over here, I'm going to darken this corner. And I just want that to be kind of a just kind of help that corner stand out. And here I have up this side. And I think because I want this hill and sunlight here, and I want to emphasize this river, I'm going to make this these trees down here dark, because that's going to give me that shape that I want for the river. The kind of meandering river. And this is going to be some rocks. It's going to, the light's coming from over there, so that would be in shadow. And I'm going to leave that guy alone. I'm going to simplify that. Okay, Jane, you always pick the hardest ones. How do you do that?
It's hard too. I thought it was really hard.
Well, this is going to take some explanation with color. But I'm going to see what we can do here a little bit. I know these rocks, these rocks are pure white, but I gotta do something. I can't have these both be the same. So I see that I do have some beach over here. I want to make this. Is it about the sandbar or is it about the river?
It's about the river.
Huh?
It's about the river.
It's not the river?
Oh, I think it is the river.
Yeah.
I was
Okay.
feeling like the river needs to connect with the sky.
Yeah, I agree. So anyway, I'm going to just lightly put some tone on there. Now I see a river. Now I see more of a river. And that's going to remind me that that's some rock in there, and this is some beach in there. And now I'm seeing much more of a river shape. In fact, I think what I'll do is I'm going to extend that river there. I think that helped. And also, what I think I'm going to do is to lead you into the page. It's back to gradation. So I'm going to put just a little gradation at the bottom of this. That gradation is going to lead me upstream. Actually, I don't think that's too bad. This white pencil comes in pretty handy just to remind me that, yeah, those are some branches back there, and that's some foliage back there. And here, if I just take this, now I think that I'm going to kill a little bit of this. I think that bring this up a tad. I think that shows me a river. I think that shows me some trees. I think this shows me some growth along the riverbank. And I'm going to do the same thing I did with the river. I'm going to put a few little gray midtone along there to remind me that there's my light source. You see how that framed that light source out? Yes, no?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, and this one, I actually think this is a fairly decent design. I think it balances up. I think what we did with it, we made it better design, especially having more river instead of just cutting it off. It's going to flow behind those trees. And I'd like to just kill a little bit of this guy and make that smaller. That's better for me. And so I think we did something, because I think this is an interesting shape with what we had to work with. And I know I'm getting a little fussier because it's a fussier painting. It's got a lot of organics in it. But I don't think that's too bad. Anyway, that's just me. As I keep putzing with it. Okay?
Yeah.
That help you, Jane?
Yes. Interesting approach. And then when you went to watercolor, would you do part of it real soft? And if so, which part?
Well, the sky is definitely wet and wet.
Yeah.
And what I would do with the foliage is I would do a lot of spatter. And I think I showed you guys this last week, but I'm going to try to show it to you again. Let me reduce that guy. And I'm going to leave this up here. And I want to show you something that I did quite a while ago. If I can find it. Yay, I found it. You see, this is very similar, Jane. See this?
Oh, yeah. I like
And
it.
that was done. That was done with a salt. It was just wet and wet. And I threw some salt into it. And this was actually, this light hole here was actually masked. And so was the horse. And if I had it to do over again, I don't think I would have done that because I was still being my Nita Ingle phase. Anyway, I masked that carefully. And it's got a lot of the same kind of stuff in it. If you want to mask anything, you know, you could mask some edges, or you could just use gouache, or you could use, I think that was spatter with some, there's a lot of spatter in here, and a lot of salt in here, and a lot of brush rolling. I actually took a brush, I'm still on my share. I'll pinpoint, I'll show you this. So here's my, I'll go to, I can't show you that. See, can you see how that's similar?
Yeah, well, and I really like that painting. I like the greens.
Yeah, that's just a warm green and cool green. So if I go to here, you see this brush?
What number?
How I got these guys up here is I just took a big round big round brush and I rolled it. I just rolled it. I just put it on the page and I rolled it into a fan shape.
Oh, and that's the trees?
And that's how I got a lot of those guys.
The tree.
So I just had to paint brush full of paint. And I just rolled it on there. And of course I didn't want to do that back here because on the left side, because that was going back up the trail. And so this was on the trail. This was on this road. And I was taking a hike and I just came around the corner and saw this. And then you just, you know, add some of these twigs or limbs or branches or whatever they are, and then it makes it all trees. So you have a very similar kind of painting. And this is the windy river, actually. The road, the trail here is actually could be the windy river. And this white part up here could be the sandbar. It's very similar painting.
So on the river, would you do that wet and wet?
No, I wouldn't. Well, the thing I would do with the river is I would make it, I would keep it very light up here according to our sketch. I'll go back to it, or I'll show you. Look at this. This is multitasking. Really multitasking. I would keep this very light up here, and I would just put a little pale blue down through here at the bottom, working my way to light or white up at the top.
Are you trying to point at something?
Yeah, can't see it?
Oh.
Here, I'll make this bigger.
Sure, there.
I'll see if I can make this bigger. Yes. So now can you see it?
No, I think you're not sharing the screen.
Oh, I'm not? Oh, sorry. Then I got to get rid of the horse whisperer, I guess. Let me go back to share the screen. Okay. Now we're back to this guy. So the sky's wet and wet, definitely. That part that I showed you in the painting, that's a bunch of spatter over here. And then you define a few of these dark places. And I can see shapes in there. I can see that this is a big jaggy shape, and this is a darker shape. That's darker. So it's kind of sort of, I faked it a little bit here. So that's the top's wet and wet. This is when you put the page, start the painting, I paint the top wet and wet. I'd paint some of this. I'll put some green, blue, yellow, whatever. The river, before you start defining it, I put some blue, light blue from the sky at the bottom of it. And I'd let it drift up here to white paper. You can always tint it later. So that gradates from, the sky gradates from left to right. The river gradates from bottom to top. And then let that dry. And then you can go back and you can start spattering and sprinkling. You remember how you spattered and you sprinkled and the little spatter things blew up? They blossomed. I showed you that last week, I thought. No? Have you spattered before with?
Not really, I don't think so.
That's what this was. Did I show somebody else that or you?
Must have been somebody else.
Okay. So here's what I did. Here's what I did for spatter, and I'll just take anything that's on my palette with my dirty water. And oh, wait a minute, I gotta get my spray bottle first. Yeah. Okay, here's my spray bottle. So a lot of the stuff I did with those trees, and I'll use some green. So I did this, and I did this. And I did, I'll put some of this down here.
Are you trying to show us?
Oh, I'm not showing you.
Oh, there.
You should be seeing it.
Well,
Put some of this in here, and I'm going to put some salt on this. And that's my, that's some spatter. And I can get quite dark with it. I can roll the brush. See what that does? I can sprinkle this. I'm sprinkling, I'm not spraying it. I'm sprinkling it. Here's some more spatter. See when it hits that, hits those wet places, it blossoms. See it blossom? You see all this happening?
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, that's just a way to do several techniques so it starts to look like something, so it starts to look real. It suggests it.
Yeah, nice.
It's not real, it's just a suggestion. And then once that's dry, I'm not going to wait for it to dry, but of course not. Then you can, put some twigs, branches, whatever they happen to be in there, connect these guys. Now it starts to look like something. Look at that. Instant organic stuff.
Wow.
And as that's drying, you can always paint some other stuff in there. So now I have dark light. And I could also, I guess, I can use this too. There we go. See, so you can get a lot of stuff. That's all you're looking for is just a volume that happens to look organic. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
So you can use that for Rick. You know what I would do if I were you, Rick? Some of those snow patches, I would probably just use my palette knife. So it's not pure white, but it's part of it's a light place on some of those mountainsides, for the rock texture.
Mm-hmm.
Just thought of that. And Holly, you could do the same thing with those beach things, those beach
With the
rocks.
ice. With the ice.
Yeah, also you could use, scrape, you could scrape back, but you could also use some, white gouache to sparkle some of those. Not all of them. In fact, very few, but just where you see the light might along the edges. And I don't know what else to do. Well, actually, I think I've done a lot. So I hope this helps you figure out what to paint or what not to paint. See, I think doing that helped me figure out if it was, let me move you guys. You guys are right in the middle of my screen. I don't know why it won't let me get along the top, but it won't, so. Anyway, so this was probably the simplest one that we did, was this guy. But it still captured the photo, I thought, or what she was trying to do. That would look like Iceland to me. This one, I think, worked much better than I thought it was gonna. Anyway, I think that we simplified it and gave you a place to look. I want to be there looking down on that lake. Yay. And it made more sense out of it. Here was the river one, which we just did. So now I can tell from this, do I want to paint this, or do I want to do a horizontal, or do I want to do a square, or do I want to do something else? Or do I want to add another sandbar? See, that's another thing that I could, and then we did this guy. So you can see that. I gotta wait for that to dry. So anyway, on the screen, I could say, I like this texture. So I'm looking at it right now. I like this texture and this rocky texture. You guys can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I like this rocky texture here, and I'm going to add some more here. You know, so it's not the lone stranger, or at least I'm going to add some here, you know, to support this. And if you look at this photograph closely, up here, in here, at the bottom of this, see where that came from? See all those stones in the bottom of the river? That river is really shallow.
Right.
Yeah, so that could just be a little spatter just to pick up that texture again. So anyway, that's that story. Actually, that looks pretty good on, it's always amazing. Watercolor just does wonders. I mean, that just smushed around, but it looks like something. Anyway, I want to bring up something else that I promised you guys. See if I can find it. If I can find a YouTube. And I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find this, but I'm trying. I will try.
And he goes, when everyone see yellow, Alvaro see red. It's amazing. What is this guy doing? I don't want to clean his shoes. I think he's doing it from the very first thing. However, Alvaro likes it all. He picks up yellow ochre on top of the purple. And my goodness, I think
I know I have this on a.
No, I take my mind.
I know I have this on a video.
I take my mind. Here's my
I mean a CD, but I don't know if I have it. I don't know if I can find it online. See, just by scrolling down through here, I find a bunch of stuff. I find a bunch of stuff that I might be interested in or to see more of. Somebody was painting apples. There's another apple. That's brand new. Not that I'm going to be an apple painter, but here's what Jane found. The big mid-tone quiet harbor. Tonal contrast. I kind of like his way he presents his stuff because it's quick. He speeds it up, which we can all do.
Right, and I learned that you can slow it down when you watch it play back.
There you go, Jane.
What's they're pointed towards us, so the shape is a little unusual. And then I'm generate this feeling that dawn is just breaking.
This is the hard part. Can
one
you guys
thing that
hear
I'm
me?
trying to do here is
Yes.
compartmentalize the
Can you hear me?
I want to
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the hard part, going from here,
shapes of the boats or the strong yellow.
going from here.
Now
That's
move
what
on
seems
to
to
yellow
throw
and
everybody
then give you
uh,
fine mark
to here.
which is wet into wet. I've added cadmium yellow, cadmium orange, sky. And
This
now
is actually how I'm going to
the
paint
top
my
right
first
with a
painting
little
that I
cobalt
showed
blue.
you. Cool,
Medium.
warm and then put cool
And
over
then
it.
as I come down, I've thickened the paint quite a bit using a little bit of extra cobalt blue and a little bit of the cadmium red mixed together. Look at how the colors have mixed on the paper. Red is coming through the blue. Give us a feeling of the water coming close to us. So I'm using more of that blue-gray, literally thousands of values in the top, and I'm bringing them down into the water. This is perfect. This is better than I planned. The lost in some cases, and then where it hits dry paper, we see it again. Up above, the paper is fairly dry, so we can execute some dry brush or, some, even though in reality it is of uniform width. In painting, it looks better, especially when the light's coming through those. It tends to.
So that's Gary Tucker.
Small touches to finish off the painting.
You could look him up on
it's having
YouTube.
that finished quality. Well, I guess we got to put a couple seagulls in there to give us a feeling of, the location. Seagulls are very present in the morning light, and that's our.
So
Good
here's
morning.
another
We're
one
back,
by him that's
behind the brush today.
kind of
we're going to
interesting
be making a little departure
because of the reflections.
tonal values.
Oh, here.
Although they'll still play a role in our painting, and we're going to be
See all these
more about
reflections?
looking at your sun
Oh, I went too far.
and more that are interesting. Same with the into the rock area to further divide some of the rocks and give a richer rendition of the texture. So this is I guess a step in learning how to look at.
So here's a whole thing. I even typed it wrong. Here's a whole thing on reflections. Boats, paint reflections in the creek, which is what you're doing, Jane. So here's a whole bunch of stuff. How to paint reflections. Top 10 tips. I want to look up one more thing. Oh, maybe it was David Taylor. Maybe it was, yeah. I think it was David Taylor. Sorry. Yep. See, some of these are pretty cool. This is David Taylor. It wasn't Robert Wade. I think that's a nice little watercolor. Here's another one. So he's painting a river, and here's another one. Here's some texture here, Jane. But you see how that background was softened and taken out of the equation. So David Taylor might be a good one for you to look at for reflections. like these guys,
Oh, that's good.
as long as it focuses. Yeah, there you go. Boy, look at all the granulation in that. Jeez, it's a lot. It's a lot. And how to make things look like water. Back to David Taylor again. Oh, this is the one I was thinking about. It's Alvaro. You believe that? That's Alvaro. Isn't that
Yeah.
interesting? See how the river gradates up to lighter? And these things are just they're the watercolor plus the reflected color, so they're never going to be that bright. So it's a combination of the local color, which is the water, plus the yellow leaves. So you get kind of a grayer, a more neutral color. Anyway, so there's just countless opportunities here to just go see stuff. I don't know. That is David Taylor. That's a really bad. That's a really bad one of the one we just looked at, contrast-wise. But you can see that it doesn't take much. It's all about suggestion. So that's what you are about. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
You
So
would,
does anybody have anything
yeah,
to-
you would
to share?
Lake Como.
I can't. I'll show you. I'll bring up Lake Como, but I don't think I can. I think I have to go look on a DVD.
I'll just go look for it. Yeah.
I'll just bring this up, and maybe it will give me some. Everybody paints this. That's what it looks like on the other side of the lake. That is Lake Como. I'm gonna try this. World renowned. I'm pretty sure it was one of his older pieces. There he is painting it. You can't tell anything, but there he is painting it.
Hmm.
Well, that's a nice, that's kind of a nice watercolor feel. Who is this guy?
I can't see any pictures on the screen.
Oh, I'm not sharing?
Right.
I thought I was sharing. Oh, sorry. I guess I took it off as share. Anyway, there's a nice little watercolor there that I don't know who the hell this guy is, but I just ran into him looking for Alvaro. So his name's Mark League. Who the hell ever heard of him? Here he is actually doing this painting. And there's Lake Como in the background, but I don't know if he has a finished one in here. Oh, yeah, here it is. Or here's one that's similar. See this back here?
Oh, yeah.
That's Lake Como, and that's what's similar to what Andy did as far as I think this was a redo. I think the one that the painting is that I have is more complete because it shows the hills behind and whatnot. But at any rate, that's how he handled all those buildings that you saw before, the Lake Como buildings. I'll see if I can't. I don't know why I can't find it, but I can't. I'll try to tag something for it next week, just so you guys can see, just because I said I would. No, come on. Let me get out of there. That's why I have thousands of images. Stop it. That's why I have thousands of images floating around in my head. Because I look at all this stuff all the time. Well, here's a shot that he took. This is what he painted from. I'm sure he was over here painting. I don't know. Here you go. See across there?
Right.
That's what he was painting with this hill in the background. Then he picked some boats to paint in the front. Why I can't find the painting, I don't know, but I'm sure it's an older painting. So how would you paint this? This is similar to the Catalina painting I showed you, right?
Right. Right. You know, the first thing I see in there is like a Keys Van Al simplification of the background, but giving you shapes, you know, just standard illusion.
Yeah, I mean, I can't paint all that stuff.
No.
I mean, here's one of these boats here. Only it's got glowy light on it. You know, I'm not painting any of this stuff. And here's the casino back here. So that's what you found out, Rick, by just combining paintings.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty cool, actually. You just combine the paintings on it. I'll find it. If I find it, I will email it to you, unless there's another view of, it looks like Lake Como with, it looks like Alvaro too. It looks like another one of his workshops. So I'd love to be able to find the one I'm talking about, but who knows? Now it's going to start getting into something else. Okay, go away. Won't let me. I've seen all this stuff. There it is again. There's this photo of it. That would be a pretty interesting challenge to paint. Anyway, I don't want to spend any more, too much more time trying to find this stupid thing, because I'll take a screenshot of off the video of it and send it to you guys. That's similar, but it's not the painting. It's not, I'm making a big deal out of it. It's not that big a deal. Anyway, okay, who's got something to look at? Anybody?
Or
have you just been listening to me and prattle and paint? Or
well,
Yeah, we've just been listening.
you what? I'll take me off of share, and then you can we'll spotlight somebody if they have something. I'm going to spotlight Pat. There we go.
We're talking about the difference with watercolor and markers. So the first that I did in a watercolor, and then I did a marker on the second one.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel much better about the markers, of course. And you know, you get into a lot of racing through trying to get the values, and the control on the markers is a lot more interesting for me. You know?
Well, it simplifies stuff.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about, am I running out of paint? Is it the right, whatever? Is it too wet? Is it too dry? Is it whatever?
Yeah. And then it's, am I going to attempt a value study in watercolor off of this?
Yeah.
Right. Which is really valuable at that step. I'm finding is really valuable for me.
So you don't have to, here's a good point. The reason I like markers is because I can do them really fast and they're right there.
Yeah.
And I can make changes on them really fast. I can use white paint. I can use gray paint. I can do whatever I want to do. I can start over. I can recrop it. I can make it a different shape. I can make something a bit bigger, smaller.
Yeah, and I'm feeling they're, you know, an immediate extension to the sketch that you can jump right into. You know?
Right. So if I were doing something, I would go right from the marker because I can explore. To me, the marker is the same as doing it in watercolor. That's just me because I've done enough marker comps and all the other bullshit. So now I'm confident enough that I could go right to color.
Yeah,
and do my color study and try to make it try to keep what I learned by doing the marker comp.
Yeah.
The marker study when I do my color. So when you do that gray, when I use the gray marker, I draw it first to get my shapes kind of sorta and to change stuff. And when that I make everything gray.
Yeah.
You know, everything mid-tone. When I'm painting the color, I don't have to have everything the same color. I can make it red, yellow, and blue, but it's all the mid-tone. It's all the value of that color. That's my mid-tone. That's how Andy gets the glowy buildings and the glowy boat and the sun, you know, stuff.
Yeah.
And then I can go back and put my darks in. And I don't have to put a black dark. I would just start with my dark, my light dark. As long as it's darker than my darkest mid-tone, I would start there. And then if I need some real emphasis, some real punch, then I would use like neutral tint or Payne's Gray right out of the tube. So that's kind of a no-brainer. And the other thing in that is the edges. So when I'm putting down all that color mid-tone, I'm going to put down my first color mid-tone, i.e. my gray, as a wet on wet. And then I'm going to let that dry. And I'm going to put my second mid-tone, i.e. gray, down. I'm going to put it slightly darker, of course, and I'm going to make it wet on dry. So now I've got a hard edge and I've got a soft edge. Okay. So I can have those trees in the distance soft, and I can have the trees coming forward harder on the edge.
Yeah.
Now, if I want those trees to come further forward, what do? I go to my darks. I make them darker. I still have a hard edge though. So,
yeah.
So that's a good way to look at it. So you could just get a gray marker, a black marker, in the big fat size, and one thinner, you know, for depending on what you're doing, and you do it that way. But
yeah,
I've noticed just this morning by doing this stuff that you guys all seem to do a really good black and white or grayscale value studies. And then something happens between that and the color.
Yeah, I think it's like being able to identify the values, the comparable values in colors. That's a big step in getting lost sometimes. And I do that, you know. So, I mean, you almost have to take a color and do a value study on the color to get your eye right on it.
Well,
Yeah.
If you just took a photo of your palette and put it in grayscale then you kind of figure it out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna do that.
Or the way Stan Miller did it. Go back and visit Stan Miller a little bit on value and color. He just
Yeah.
cuts that little square out of a white piece of paper,
Right.
and then he
Yeah.
puts it. I can put that on my hand. You know, what value is that square on my hand? I'm looking at it, and I think it's about a 30%. I don't care what the color is. I think it's about a 30% in value, maybe 20. I'd
Okay.
say 30. So, what value is your shirt? What value is that teal that you're wearing? You know, it's that, and Rick's shirt. And what value is that's a pretty light value shirt you're wearing, Jane. You know, what value is that? How do I paint that? You know, so
Yeah. For sure. Okay.
yeah, it's all learning. So anybody else? Pat did some stuff. Anybody else want to hold something up? We have plenty of
Well,
time.
I was doing it with my pad and an Apple Pencil, doing a value study, and I think it could be good as like a first value study, and then maybe go from there to the watercolor. I held this up before, but it's kind of cool. You know,
Yeah.
you still get the values, and then I think maybe from there I would go into doing the watercolor values.
Yeah, absolutely. You could certainly do that. Here, let me spot. Jane's going to hold some up. Let me make you bigger.
What program do you use, Holly?
I'm using GoodNotes with and then just you can draw on it. GoodNotes. It's
GoodNotes.
not an easy one to learn, but it's really great.
Oh, wow.
once you
Look
get
at
into it.
Look
That's
at Jane did everything.
Very
Wow.
cool.
I thought you were asleep back there, and you did everything. You did all. You did all the value study. You did all those 3 of them.
Yeah, I liked working with you. I was using my Tomco markers.
Yeah,
And
I like the markers. Look at the lake. Yeah, and look at that. Look at the her little watercolory thing.
I got a little salt. I was trying that. I haven't done that. I like working with you. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, that's why I do that.
But I would really love it if we can do an actual painting maybe next
Well,
time.
we will as soon as we finish this challenge. As soon as we finish this 3-week thing. This is our, what was supposed to be this week was our painting. What we chose to paint and our painting. That we painted the way we would paint it. The last week we talked about what do we choose to pick? What painting are we going to do this with? That was the last week. So we kind of fudged it to this week. So we were supposed to have what's our painting? What's our first painting? And that looks like me. That's a Jane. That's a Pat. That's a Holly. That's a Rick. I can tell. And then the next week, a la next week, was supposed to be, okay, I'm used to all these things in watercolor. I'm used to my paper size. I'm used to cold press. I'm used to my palette. I'm used to my brushes. So what am I going to change up? Oh, I use flat brushes. So I'm going to use a round brush. And maybe I'll do it on hot press instead of cold press. Or maybe I will change my palette because I'm so used to this, because I've got colors on my palette I never use. I had to have, but I never used them. So what do I do for style? If I'm and I showed you all those styles, just taking that bridge into consideration. Do you remember that one? Do you remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the styles. What's the wood block? What's the travel poster? What's the whatever that I'm looking for? So I've always wanted to try this style. So this first part of this was, what do I pick to paint?
Right. I'm still working on that.
Huh?
I'm still working on that.
I know it's hard. You know, that because that's going to determine everything else.
Yeah, what I could see from today is that regardless of what you find, you're going to have to improve it.
Well, you're an artist. If you're just going to copy a photo or another painting, what's the point? That means you're an artisan, and yes, I'm very good at at using this medium because I've got my 10,000 hours or whatever. But am I an artist? Am I Jane? Am I Joe? What do I look like? So by default, that's what I want you to do. That's the reason I liked Rick's challenge of using 3 different photos to make a painting.
Yeah.
You know, that was kind of cool. And Holly is zeroing in on hers. So she's got hers pretty well figured out. So all she's got to do is her painting. And then she's going to take her and do it the same painting, the same subject, and do it in a different style. And then she's going to take the same subject and do it with a completely different design. And I don't care if it's abstract. I don't care if it's poured. I don't care if it's a different medium.
What did you want us to do? 3 versions of our picture?
Yes, I sent you that whole thing. That's what we talked about last week. I sent you that whole week 1, week 2, week 3.
So eventually we're going to end up with 3
paintings.
different paintings of the same picture.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, for an example of that change for this week, Joe, I'm going to take that painting, and as we talked about in the quick Zoom, I'm going to move to just a cool and a warm palette on that, reducing it down to that. But
Yep.
I'm also going to take it to an illustration board and off of paper. So that'll be a challenge.
Yeah, there you go.
You know.
Yeah, you could just try that. You could try that. You remember the aqua board?
Yeah.
That ampersand thing where you're painting on that coated panel, that gessoed panel. It used to be the textured clay board thing. Yeah, you could try it on that.
The one place to get that is Blick. I got a different illustration board to try it out, and I did a value study of the river we were doing a couple weeks ago, and I really liked the way it laid down on the illustration board. So I'm anxious on it. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of people have said when they interview people, what's your recommendation for beginners? What should you concentrate on? It's either paint or brushes or paper. And they all said, if I had to, wouldn't not compromise on anything, it would be the paper.
Yeah.
I can get cheaper brushes, I can get student paint, but it would be the paper. What's the surface I'm painting on?
You find the difference in moving from a cheaper paper to like 100% cotton. It's just a different experience.
Yeah. Yeah, your skills aren't changing, your materials aren't changing, but your media is changing.
Yeah.
So it's like painting on, we're also used to painting on cold press.
Yeah.
What if you painted on rough?
Yeah, rough, I really enjoyed rough. I could do that all the time. It's just so damned expensive, you know?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I mean, you go to a compromise. It's like, okay, I'm not going to buy anything else but rough paper, you know?
Yeah, and if you're used to painting quarter sheet paintings, so try a full sheet. One of your paintings, one of your 3 paintings, what my goal in here was, so you have you have your journey to get to your 3 paintings. And how do I get there? I got to start someplace. I got a beginning and a middle and an end. And so I want to see, and I hope you want to see, I want to see 3 different paintings. I want to see my normal painting, however I would normally do it. I want to see something where I change my style. If I'm tight, I'm going to get looser. If I'm going to paint on this surface, I'm going to paint on that surface because I've got it all. I've got a bunch of it in my drawer. Somebody gave it to me. I've never tried it. I've always wanted to try it. Or whatever it happens to be. Could be a combination of mediums. Oh, I'm going to use watercolor and pastel and marker and ink and wash.
Right.
There's a there's a guy who paint estuaries that uses all those things. That's the reason I remember it. And then I'm going to paint, then I'm going to say, what's my design? You know, what would it look like if I just painted in ink? You know, maybe that's the purest form of my design. The purest form. Maybe I try to make a Sumi painting of my river. I don't know.
No,
That's my design. Whatever I do, I'm going to do something different. If I painted my other paintings horizontally, I'm going to paint a vertical.
the possibilities are
Takes me
endless.
back to design.
Yeah.
And I should already have that really, because when I was picking what to paint, I did several versions of it. I did a horizontal, I did a vertical, I did a square, I did a panoramic. I'm just playing. But that's what I did right up front at the very beginning before I started painting anything. So I already have that.
Yeah. It's just, you know, this painting is very challenging, but I think it'll be easy to transition it to another look. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, that was part of the challenge too. Does my painting have enough legs to do these things?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you could make a case that any of them would
Sure.
or could. Anything that you pick could, because you're a designer. You could eliminate stuff, you could add stuff, you could do whatever you wanted to do. So,
Yeah.
and yes, Jane, we will go back to a Gary Tucker or a Joey or a Andy or whatever, and we can do a step-by-step, which we have done in the past, but it's a step-by-step. And for instance, my next workshop that I'm not saying this for you guys, but it's going to be painting waves crashing on rocks and the ocean. And I'm going to be using a cold press and a hot press. So what's the difference? And on one, I'm going to use mask, and on one, I'm not. So what's the, you know, what do I need to know to paint what I'm trying to paint? Because painting waves crashing on rocks is completely different than painting that marina or that that mountain lake or whatever, or Iceland.
I tried some little crashes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Anyway.
That's interesting.
What kind of hot press paper?
It's just hot press. It's the finish of the paper. It's not a brand. It's just the finish. They use a hot roller and they press it. When they press the water out.
So I can get any brand, or,
yeah.
or like, I guess the Arches.
Yeah, they have hot press pads. I wouldn't get a big block before I tried it. I mean, I would try. I would get a sheet of hot press before I'd get a block. And you can paint. You know, you can quarter it, or what I probably do is cut it in half and then quarter it. So now I have plenty of places to try it. Anything that has a smooth surface. I painted the same thing on vellum pads. I've got a big pad of vellum. And a vellum is just a smooth sheet of paper, and it's fairly thick. It's to draw on, but I painted on it. So what happens is the paint, it's hard to get a gradated wash with a hot press because the paint doesn't soak in the fibers because they're hot rolled. It's a pretty hard surface.
Yeah.
It's not Yupo. It will soak in, but it's hard to get a nice gradated wash with it because it doesn't stay wet long enough, and the pigment sits on top a lot. It's a good subtractive method, though. You can lift easier on hot press.
I wonder how doing a card swipe Lena on a hot press would work. Haven't done that.
Yeah, I tried it on Yupo.
Yeah.
Which is even hotter than,
I bet it went crazy. Wow.
yeah, I did. I tried one of those first.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was kind of interesting. So I'm sure you all have, oh gosh, didn't sleep last night. I'm sure you all have stuff in your studio that you haven't used. Hey, let me show you something. I'm going to do I'll just do a spotlight me. You know, a great way to do these value studies with some pizzazz to it. I did this years ago. I bought a roll of that that dusty rose colored paper at Home Depot. The kind that the workmen put down when they're in your house painting so they don't ruin the carpet. And it's thick and it's this beautiful dusty rose gray color. And it was this huge roll was $12. So I couldn't pass it up. So
I got some of that.
bring it closer.
Ah, so it made a very cool sky.
Yeah, so here's
Nice.
the painting.
Oh, wow.
I used ink and I used white paint and I used some gouache. I made it blue.
Ah,
So anyway, I thought that was pretty cool.
that's
Anyway, that's kind of my value study. And it's this crappy paper. You can't see that it's, you can't see it, that it's really pretty gray kind of paper. But anyway, you can kind of see what's going on with it. Oh, look at that. It's a new crop. Oh, I like it. There you go. So you could do your value study. This could be one of your paintings.
there you go.
Yeah, think outside the box a little. So, anyway, so that was great fun too because it didn't make any difference. I couldn't really screw it up because what the hell, the paper was that paper right here probably cost me 23 cents, probably less than that because it came in a big roll.
Good deal.
I don't know what else to show you. Well, I think I showed this to you before. Oh, let's see how this worked out. Let's see how this dried out. And this wasn't on cold press. Oh, I didn't share my screen. Go back to that. No. I wanted to see how that worked. So it might be dry. Well, it kind of worked. I'll just do that so you can see some of the the texture on there, and we did that in a few minutes, didn't we?
Yeah.
You can kind of see how that was a couple minutes. That's only a couple minutes, but you can see how you can build up the volume for whatever, and it looks fresh, and it looks I don't know. I like stuff like this.
Yeah, you know, it's got a real look of charging colors in it, you know?
Yeah, and it's because it was just a couple of different colors, a yellow green and a blue green,
Yeah.
and then some darker and some salt. And I did spatter and then I sprinkled so that made it blossom or blow up or bloom, and then some just lifting with the palette knife, and painting with the palette knife is over here, and stuff like that. So you know, you were back to saying, okay, what if I did my color study? If you did your color study like this, I'd be happy. You know, from your value study, if you did your river thing and then just left your river plain, you know, because you don't need all this texture everywhere. You need the yin and yang with it. And it's Rick's case. That figure and that lake and that sky should be really simple, because why? You've got all that texture in those mountains and hills, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the bounce. And you have the triangle, you had the figure, you had the lake, and you had the sky. So you've got that triangle that are all, there's not much detail in those at all. It's all in the texture of the mountains. And that's the same way for Holly too, because she's got that beach, which is pretty plain, the water, which is plain, the sky, which is plain. I would make it plain. And then she's got that, all that looks like ice rocks, looks like crystals on the beach. And then that hill behind it. So you had that nice bounce between the quiet and the busy. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents. So that's part of it too. So I don't know if that makes sense, but it makes sense to me, and that's all I care about.
No, it's good. I like that.
So I'm gonna try to find something. There's Andy. Of course, I don't know what I did with them. I don't know what I did with all my DVDs. Oh no, I couldn't have lost them. Yeah, I think I do. Aha. I'm gonna try something I've never tried before. I'll probably break my computer, but I don't care.
Hey, did you order that SE phone, Joe?
No, I didn't. My son, yeah, what I'm looking at, what you're looking at today is my son gave me his phone, because he got a 11 or 12 or whatever the big guy is.
Right.
And he's got like a 256 gigs. I had 16. So he's got a lot more memory. I've noticed this morning that it's jerky.
That's some delay.
That delay. Okay. Hey, we might be unlucky. I'm going to make this smaller. Yeah. See if I can actually do this. Did you get overwhelmed here?
No.
Well, maybe maybe it's stopping me from letting me zoom. I thought I saw something though when it first came up. Yeah, I know I can't hear anybody either.
Oh, really?
I'm gonna stop the share for a second and see if I can. I found Alvaro, so I'm gonna plug it back in and see if that will work. Can anybody still hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I
I
can.
can't hear you.
I can hear you. Can you
Maybe it's because I'm doing this.
hear?
You have everybody muted. Hmm.
I hear Pat.
Let's see.
And then the rooftops. So I'm planning to paint the sky using plenty of yellow ochre and a violet color that happens to be ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson.
It's not going to
As I
let
said
me.
before, is a yellow color that has been grayed down. And I use ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson that makes a beautiful violet, and that will gray down the yellow. I'm using 31 part of yellow ochre and a quarter of the complementary color. Having dry technique, as it happens here and also here. Because I'm counting you the value that will come afterwards. And I will get this time I'm gonna paint those beautiful buildings, the profile of Cadaqués against, and I paint the water, capture, got a bit of, I'm gonna change the subject. Up above, I've been using here, dry technique showing down there, high polarity contrast of a very dark value next to a light background is a good demonstration of the profile of this lovely town in the shores of the Costa Brava, Cadaqués, and I'm very happy with it. Here, dry technique showing down there, high polarity contrast of a very dark value next to a light background is a good demonstration of the profile of this lovely town in the
I'll be damned. So, can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Oh, good. So you couldn't hear me for a while, right?
right.
I don't know if you could see my screen, but something's very interesting. So I'm playing this DVD, and this is where Lake Como is.
Mhm.
And as soon as I put the DVD on, it comes up and it starts to play. And as soon as I push screen share, it goes gray.
It
Yeah.
should be a copyright thing.
Yeah, so there's a code in here. There's a codec or something in here that it's not letting me screen share.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether if I
Copyright.
use QuickTime, I can make a recording using QuickTime. I don't know if that'll work. And then I took a couple of screenshots to show you that, yes, it is Lake Como. And guess what I got? I got a gray screen. I got 3 gray screens, even with just screenshots. So I can't show it to you. So there.
Way
So
too.
I'm going to try to do a little mini recording of it while I've got it on there to show you that the simplification of it, because it's even simpler than Andy's. So just to make sure. Okay, anybody got anything that they want to ask me a question on, or does anybody have something they want to show?
No.
Otherwise, I'm going to use the same offer. If you want to email me and you want to have a 5-minute Zoomie to ask a question or to show something, am I on the right track, bigger or smaller? I'll decide if it's better to let you figure it out yourself, or if I want to give you some what I think. I know it's being kind of a jerk, huh? But that's okay. You'll learn from it. Anyway,
I'm going to one up to share with you, and we can zoom it on the palette change on this and see where we're at. So I'll get that to you.
yeah. Yeah, some of you did, some of you didn't. So Jane, you know what we're doing as far as the what you're trying to do for next week? For next week, I hope we all have our painting, your painting. Whatever it happens to be, it's going to be your painting, how you would paint this normally. What do I look like? And also, I hope when you get that done that you start exploring, oh, what if I painted this on blah, blah? Or what if I painted in somebody's style that I always wanted to paint in? Or what if I painted this with my left hand? I don't know. You know, what if I tried a different surface? What if I, you know, whatever. So can I make this better? I mean, can I, I'm trying to paint this. So what do I have to know to make this a good piece of art? Do I need to reconsider my materials? Do I need a new brush? Of course. Everybody needs a new brush. It's a magic brush. Do I need another that magic color? You know, who knows? Anyway, email me
Cool.
and I'll set up a quick Zoomie. That worked for you guys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Joe.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's a lot of stuff there. So just try to remember what part of it applies to you.
Yeah.
And take it from there. I'm anxious to see what Rick comes up with now and what Jane comes up with now. And I have an inkling about Holly, and I have an inkling about Pat. So anyway, okay, guys. Have a good
Thanks.
week.
Thank you.
You're
Take care,
welcome.
guys.
Yeah.
Okay,
Bye.
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
See ya.